my first job, professional job, 1947, at the Madison Avenue Y, and we had four horns, and with Charlie Taylor, who started the band, myself, Eddie Beard, and Oscar Holden, his sister Grace Holden, and my brother Wayman on drums. Now Wayman was not born to be a drummer. You know, he wanted to play drums, but he was not born to be a drummer because Wayman, in the history of jazz, nobody has ever stopped in the middle of a tune. And Wayman would chew gum when he played drums, and we playing Choo Choo Boogie with Louis Jordan, and all of a sudden, man, Choo Choo Boogie, pop, stops. Looking back, Wayman's like that. So what's wrong? So I'm tired. Please, man. Wayman's beautiful. I adore him, man. Bumps Blackwell was like a legend in Seattle. You couldn't get away from him. He ran a butcher shop on Madison Avenue under the Washington Educational Social Club. He had a chain of taxi cabs. He worked in a jewelry store. He had a job at Boeing, and he had a junior and a senior band. So we heard about the senior band. He was like he owned the turf, and so he saw Charlie Taylor's band and sort of drafted that into being Bumps Blackwell's junior band. And before we know it, we look up, we're opening for Cab Calloway because we could do everything: dance, sing, play together, comedy, anything at 13 years old. And we'd open for Cab Calloway. Bobby Tucker comes through. We work with Billie Holiday. Comes back through with Billy Eckstine. We work with Billy Eckstine. So we felt we were hot stuff, And Ray Charles was in town. And it was wonderful because we were just pumped up all the time. We had three jobs a night, and it was great. For kids, it's a miracle. We used to play hooky from school every day of the week sometimes, to go down to pay 11 cents to go see these movies. And I was more interested in, because I don't know where this fascination for visual and sound came from, but I could feel the influences of all the studios after a while, after listening to so many with Alfred Newman at Fox and Victor Young at the Paramount, et cetera, and Benny Carter whenever he did something, and Horace Henderson with Lena Horne. And but after a while, I didn't think it was ever going to be possible for me to be able to get an opportunity to write for films because they were long, four-syllable Eastern European names most of the time, and not too many Joneses or Johnsons on there. So they say God protects fools and babies, right? I was so stupid when I was at this age, but I had so much passion for music. I didn't know what key signatures were. I hadn't studied formally. And so I'd write on notes at the top of the parts. Play B natural a half step lower because it sounds funny if you play it natural. And the guy said, just put a flat down and it's in the key of F, turkey. And I was trying to describe the western winds and the northern winds and the southern winds and the different characteristics of it. Because I always wanted to write for movies first, so I always thought visually. And eventually I went for it, wrote it. We played it at Seattle University with Gus Manhertz Orchestra. And I showed it to Lionel Hampton, and that helped get me out of Seattle. And before that, I just sent it to Boston, which is called the Schiller's House, which is now Berkeley School of Music. And that got me to the East Coast, closer to Charlie Parker and Bird. and Miles. Since I think I could even hold my horn properly, I wanted to and tried to play like Miles Davis. Dizzy was too hard to imitate, and Miles was so cool, and he changed the sound of the trumpet. He's the Picasso of jazz. He really is. He went through just like the blue and the cubism and primitive and everything else. So Miles did exactly the same thing and not followed it. He led it. He led all the movements he went through. And I finally got to meet him in 1951. I was standing in the Downbeat Club in New York, scared to death and wide-eyed Seattle green turkey, and listening to Mingus, and behind me I said, I heard
Tell me about some of the game changes you met in your life.
some sucker on the Lionel Hampton record trying to sound like me. I said, oh my God. And behind me was Miles. And he wanted to let me know that it was his way of saying hello in a way, And we were friends until he left, Just is incredible. Well, this was the first professional thing I ever had recorded, and I was so proud, and I was levitating. It's called Kingfish, and I wrote the arrangement, I wrote the tune, and I did probably one of my only solos on records, the first thing I recorded with Lionel Hampton. I didn't have much money, so Somebody told me the way you copyright it is put it in an envelope and seal it and put not to be open for copyright. So they stamp it on the back. They put the stamps on the back, and that will hold up in court. And so that, thank God, somebody again showed you the way, and showed you how to protect your music. And I was thrilled when we did this. This is 1951. Well, I had been on the road for years with Lionel Hampton. I'm coming out of Seattle, and I got a lot of surprises in the South, but with colored drinking fountains, and that's what they say, colored and white, and the dance halls were all segregated in New Orleans, Mississippi, Georgia, and everywhere. And we're in the '60s now, '64, and so when we first night we get there, Frank has this big huddle over near some slot machines. I remember Keely Smith and her brother Piggy were there, and I see a bunch of very rough-looking dudes standing around. He says, "Here's how it's going to work. Each one of you guys are going to be assigned to a different guy in the band, and if anybody even looks funny at them, break their legs." I mean, Frank used that word very loosely. And I had a Yugoslavian dude. It was, in his late '60s with a bald head. They could actually break a brick, probably with his hands. He taught me to speak Serbo-Croatian, and I didn't realize it was that rough up there then. And they'd just come out of a situation where, the biggest artists up there, whether it be Nat Cole or Lena or anybody else, they had to eat in the kitchen. They could not even go into the casino. Sammy Davis couldn't go in the casino when he first worked there. That's the way it was. And I remember once with the Four Tops were working with Sammy, and they weren't allowed to go in the pool. And somebody made a crack about, what are you talking about? It's going to be a ring around the pool or something. But it was racist. There's no two ways about it. And that's the way it was. It's this is a ring that's it's the family ring of the Sinatra family. This is the ring that Frank Sinatra wore, almost everything he sang. And Tina gave us all uh, uh, rings with this family seal on it. The people that were really close to the family. It means a lot to me. Frank was amazing. We had a bonded in an amazing way. I never took it. Unfortunately, I never knew how real and deep it was until he was gone, because I or didn't want to take the chance of being too vulnerable enough to get hurt if that was the way he acted with everybody. You know what I mean? And so, but he really reached out. He asked me to go to the family dinners on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we spent a lot of time together. Had really hanging in Palm Springs, and just incredible working and playing relationship. And it's either one is 100% experience playing with him and working with him, but working and playing with him is awesome. And I'm glad I did both. I think what made Frank Sinatra so great uh, is the same thing that made people like Ella Fitzgerald and Billy Eckstine, Sarah Vaughan, and Peggy Lee great. It's very difficult for the audience today to realize that the Bassies, the Artie Shaws, the Benny Goodmans, and Duke Ellingtons and Lunsfords and Tommy Darcy's were the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and Boys to Men and the Temptations of that time. The instrumentalists were the stars. And the vocal groups were the relief. And Tommy Darcy's band, he'd play as long as he wanted to, and Ziggy Elman and Buddy Rich and whoever was in the band at that time. And then they'd modulate, and Frank Sinatra, Joe Stafford, and the Pied Pipers would walk down to the microphone after modulation and sing a song and sit back down. What made them great is they did not have the pressure on them to be amazing performer, amazing singer, and everything else because they had a wonderful spawning ground there to sit there every night and learn, listen to the best jazz musicians in the world and Basie or Duke's band, and watch Tommy Dorsey breathe. And I'm getting sentimental over you. Frank swears, he learned how to breathe and hold notes like he does because they had the proper apprenticeship time and development and a spawning ground, a place to use as a spawning ground, which they don't have now. A kid at 15 years old walks into a studio and gets the number one record. She's got a publicist, a agent, a manager, pygmy stretches, got everything all at one time, and $14 million worth of jobs too. And has to learn how to do everything that it takes somebody else 25 years to develop piece by piece. They have to get it all together. Imagine the pressure on Britney Spears. how many people are there fixing her hair and her makeup and her microphone and the stage and choreographers and everything else. They get her prepared after one or two hits to get out on that stage and hold that spotlight. It's not easy. The people from the era of Sinatra were singing the best music ever written in America. Please, let's get real. They sang the best songs ever written in this country in terms of American popular music. And I know that's subjective and a matter of opinion, but I mean, when you get down to just music, there's not too much to discuss what's really musical and creative lyrically and melodically. And you must admit that the songs of the 40s and so forth were some of the most powerful things ever written in pop music. And most of them from Broadway shows. And they had the best material, they had great arrangers and very musical bands because uh, when looking back, all those bands were really dance bands. Basie, Duke, and Artie Shaw, Woody Herman, everything. They were dance bands first to shake your booty. Now, in the course of that, with imagination in a group of 18 or 19 musicians, there's a great arranger, there's a great leader, and there's great soloists in there, and a lot of innovation and art came through in spite of it just being a dance situation. And classical art came through that. And it was born, it was like Salk vaccine in a way. And it came out, and it's something that captured the entire planet very early. I have a friend in Sweden, Harry Nicolason, who was the owner and founder of Jazz Orchestra Journal. It's the 80-year-old jazz magazine from Sweden. And it's ironic that the entire world discovered this art from America, and the Americans to this day, most of them have not really yet understood what place they play in the world of art around the world, American music.
Because I ask everyone else to define you. Who is Quincy Jones?
I don't know. I am whatever I am doing at that time. That's why I always like to explore and go to that new place and that new adventure to try to find out. Because I figure I don't ever want to finish. I think if you finish, that's when you give up. And I talked to a lot of conductors and so forth. That's why they live such a long time, is because they never get finished, and they live 98 years old. Or creative people for the most part live a long time, or should, if they don't indulge too much. But I don't know. I think that once you develop a core skill, and I consider my core skill as arranging and orchestrating, composing. I mean, that's what I really put all my time into in the beginning, and I found a way to find a correlation between that and television production or movies or magazine, whatever else it is, you do. That's what I see a lot of correlation in structure and presentation in the book, it's after a while, it's the same thing. If you have all the trumpets play high for 10 minutes, it's going to sound like doo-doo, And it's the same way if you have, in a movie, if you have everybody slapping each other, for 5 reels, it's about architecture and pacing and climax and not having anticlimaxes and establishing the locale, identifying enemies and allies. I mean, it's story structure. They're talking about story structure. All of those things, somehow they have a common denominator, I feel inside, And I also feel that I enjoy following my bliss and my vision. I trust my vision a lot, and I sometimes with a lot of negative, non-believing people around us saying that's not going to work, that can't happen. I don't even think that doesn't mean a thing to me, because that just makes me recharge and keep going. And I just love to dream. I love to execute it. I love to be there and try to make some difference in being on this planet, And I feel very, very like a very lucky person that I'm able to do all of that and still have the great friends and great children, and that's all these little pieces of what make all this stuff worthwhile. I mean, it's like they say, this is what there's evidence of you being in your skin. And most of the time I say, I don't want to waste my time sleeping, because you're going to get a lot of sleep when you get out of here, And in Frank Sinatra's line, he said, "Live every day like it's your last, and one day you'll be right."
This video raises questions, and I need for you to be extremely honest in the comments when answering them. And just so you know, I have 4 questions. Number 1, tell me who you are. Number 2, tell me your thoughts about Quincy Jones. Number 3, who is your favorite musician? And number 4, from around the time you were a kid, give me a comparison of music then to now. Now, please be honest in the comments when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.